and a whole lot of listening from you guys. You don't have to take any notes. There's nothing noteworthy about what I'm going to talk about. The notes are coming here. It should come in your mind, not on the paper. All right? So this is what I plan to do actually. I've already asked your plan A. And there are, out of all the people, there are only 4 or 5 people. That means like a very minority population of this group wants to join the industry. So the rest of you can go for lunch. Yeah. So we've already talked about plan A and the way we look forward to a job. I will be talking about how plant breeding is looked at from an industry point of view. What do we do and how do we breed plants, and you will be surprised at seeing some of the things which you've learned but probably forgotten by now. Okay? I'll be talking about transboundary movement of seeds, making PGRs available. That's what we do when we do transboundary movement of seeds. We'll be talking about global treaties. You can read all of this here. All right. One of the topics that I've cut out, you guys can read, right? Your MSc, PhD students, you can read. So what could be better and how? That's the part I've cut out, because that's something you guys should figure out when you join the industry. If I tell you this, then I'll lose my job as well, because that's what I do. And the last point, I'll be talking about how do you fit in. But that question is open throughout the talk, throughout the discussion. We can talk about where do you guys fit in and how do we recruit people, what do we use them for, what is expected from you, all of those things you can ask me. Okay? For plan A, we've already talked about the science of expedited evolution. How many people have heard this phrase before? Expedited evolution. I love this phrase. It's like it comes from something like Marvel Comics, you know, X-Men. Expedited evolution, fast-tracked evolution. Evolution takes thousands of years, but once in a while, the evolution makes a giant leap, and that's when Wolverine is born. Anybody seen X-Men? Yes. Nobody? Yes. Yes. That's what mutations do, right? And that's the way we've been breeding plants all throughout, selecting the best mutants, using them for our good. Can anybody identify what this plant is? Another chance. Go ahead. Tomato. It is tomato, the berry. So how did the berry become the tomato that we have in our salads and our sambars and all our other dishes? It's all about selection and selective cultivation. That's the science of plant breeding in the first place. And that's how we speed up evolution. All of it. If you see corn, how many people have ever heard about Shri Ram and Sita? We just had Dussehra yesterday, right? How many of you have ever heard of Shri Ram and Sita eating bhutta in any Ram Leela? Corn, wo jo bhuna hua corn hota hai, bhutta. Anybody heard? No. Why? Why they never ate any corn in the jungles? No, not just domesticated. Corn was not in India. Corn is not an Indian crop. You didn't know this? Corn is not of Indian origin. It came here with the Portuguese about 400 years ago. And so was tomato. Do you know the traditional Karnataka sambar does not have any tomato in it? That's why they put only tamarind. In fact, none of the sambars would ever have tomato. That's something you get here. How many people are from down south? Quite a few, na? सांबर में टमाटर नहीं डलता, मूली डलती है, टमाटर नहीं डलता. अब डालते हैं, because now it's available. 400 years ago it wasn't available, because it came to us from the Portuguese. What else came to us? One more example. Anybody? Somebody? Potato. Good example. Potato is another favorite food of ours, which isn't of Indian origin. So these all came to India as introductions. So I've taken two beautiful words in these 5 minutes. selection and introduction. And that is what we do in plant breeding, and even in companies as big as ours. The principles of plant breeding always remain the same, and the biggest two pillars of breeding better plants is the ability to select better plants and the ability to introduce new plants. There are many examples of introductions. Can anybody give me any other example from recent times? A vegetable that you haven't seen before, but it's now available all across India. Broccoli, right. And you have what is known as lettuce, salad leaves, wasn't available before. And you have, how many of you know Jugni Kaddu? Anybody heard the name before? North India mein it's called Jugni Kaddu. Some places call it Kaddu, some places it's called by different names. It's actually zucchini. Zucchini is another fruit or vegetable which has come to India in very recent times. In fact, we've had a revolution of new vegetables. If you see your redi wala, sabji wala, many of the vegetables are new, and companies like ours are a small factor behind making this revolution possible. We've brought in many new vegetables to the country just by the second principle of introduction. That's because we live in a global village. We are not now confined to certain boundaries alone. हालांकि हमारे देश में बहुत सारी boundaries हैं. We have boundary between different states, even between different houses. But then we are living in a global world now. So all crops that are grown across the world, almost all of them are grown in India now. That's because we have a very big diversity of weather and climate. You don't have anything to ask so far? This brings me to transboundary. See, if we have to introduce or select in India, we need to bring seeds into India or collect seeds from India and then start selection from them. The easier thing to do is introduction. I was also very surprised in my MSc when my most favorite teacher, Dr. Sultan Singh, God rest his soul in peace, when he was teaching us plant breeding, I've studied in Haryana Agriculture University. वो ये कहते थे कि सबसे आसान तरीका फसल उगाने का है कि ते और उगरी हो उसने उठा के इधर ले आओ, मतलब कहीं और उगरी हो and you bring it here. That's the easiest way of breeding, and that's called introduction. And we've been doing that for a very long time. Mankind has been doing that for a very long time. But when we come to transboundary movement of seeds, I just want to show you some of the things here. I'm not going to go into the animations. But basically, we need seeds for food and fiber and in agriculture as an input for the farmer. So there are many things written here about why do we need, it's a hungry planet and all that. I don't think I'll get into the details of all this. You all know why we do plant breeding or why we have companies like Bayer Crop Science, who are a seed company and a chemical manufacturer company as well for agrochemicals. So I'm not going to go into the details of this, but the main message in this slide is written below. We enable farmers to grow more with limited resources. For us, sustainability is not a fashion word. It's not just a fancy word which we use in our conversation. We value the virtue of sustainability and we live with it. Now, you might ask, how is sustainability a part of seed research, making a hybrid? I'll tell you how. So when you make a hybrid, we have the world's largest selling tomato hybrid is produced by Bayer Crop Science, and its name is Abhilash. जो आप सुंदर सुंदर गोल टमाटर खाते हो ना, hybrid tomato, most of it is Abhilash tomato, which is grown in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and a lot of Asian countries, including a lot of Latin American countries. Now, this tomato alone, this variety has been around for several years now. But all companies like us have a plan of discontinuing this superhit product. Why do we have such a plan? Because we'll stop using this product and we'll bring something better than this, more sustainable than this. Bayer Crop Science has a commitment of reducing its chemical footprint by 30% by a certain time, I think 2030 or something, I'm not sure about that, but you can check that on our website. It says that we are going to cut our chemical footprint. How are we going to do that? If we don't have better crops resistant to pests, disease, abiotic stresses, we won't be able to cut chemical footprints. So we need better crops to cut down on the chemicals. And the way to do it is through whole plant breedings, whatever you guys have learned so far.
The hybrids needs excessive fertilizers.
That cannot be a journal statement, my dear. It can't be a generalized thing. It cannot be a journal that all people living in India are black people. So you just take a look, there is such a diversity of colors in our country. Everybody has a different skin tone.
But the matter of hybrids is different from compared to other varieties.
What is this difference?
There will be different in the fertilizer consumption when compared to a variety and a hybrid. Hybrid consumes more fertilizers when compared to varieties. It's the same with respect to the black and white people also.
They eat more food,
No,
black
it's
and
not
white
like
people?
that. Hybrids,
No, I think you're generalizing it too much. I think it's a very general statement given by a lot of people that hybrids eat more fertilizers, you need this more, you need that more. There's no hybrid in wheat so far. Why are we putting fertilizer in wheat?
but we are not putting as much as what hybrid consumes.
And is there a benchmark for that?
It depends on the company.
See, I think we generalize things a lot. This generalization will, if that's the case, then our soils would be really disrupted by now. We still have.
In some part of the area, it's much
But
more
hybrids are more responsive to fertilizers.
input response.
That's a different thing. They are more input responsive. That's for sure there. But input responsiveness has to be there, no? Without input, how would you expect a hybrid to perform better? How would heterosis set in? Nobody breeds for heterosis without inputs. Is any university working on hybrids that don't need any inputs? Nobody is working on that. So that kind of course, inputs are needed. I think it's judicial use of inputs which is more important. Indiscriminate use of anything is bad. It's judicious use which is better. So even if we grow hybrids or we grow inbreds, all cotton grown in USA is inbred cotton. India is one of the only countries that grows hybrid cotton. They don't grow hybrid cotton. Why they don't grow hybrid cotton is because they can get good yields without actually overutilizing the planet, without putting in more fertilizer. But with inbreds, they can get good yields. For us, hybrids are more valuable because our land holding is small, our agriculture pattern is very different from other countries. So it's not like hybrids are a solution for everything, but it has to be a judicial use. Just like biotechnology doesn't cure all problems of the world. It's not a silver bullet for world hunger. It can never be. Always agriculture is a multidisciplinary subject. How many of you are BSc AG graduates? All? How many subjects do you study? Did you study sociology? How does that put a figure in agriculture? So you have so many subjects that you study as when you study BSc agriculture. The reason for having so many subjects is because agriculture is a very multidisciplinary science. There are so many facets of agriculture, and that's what we use in a company like ours. We use those different facets of agriculture. So are we at peace now? All right. I would really welcome all your comments, even if they are uneasy for me to answer. But please don't hold back anything, even in your native languages, Hindi, English, Telugu, Tamil, anything. I don't speak Tamil and Telugu, but somebody can translate for us. But don't hold it back. Ask your questions. It's a good thing. So, where were we? Okay. This is a live example of how I can't use the pointer on this. Anyway, what you see on the globe, those lines on the globe, those are actually what we call as trade lanes, where seeds move from one country to another and from another country to another country. So the kind of complexity, the moral of this whole map is to tell you how, oh, it works. All right. Thank you for pointing that out. So the moral of this whole story is that seeds are not restricted to one particular country now. We move germplasm from one country to another, and this is only one company, Bayer Crop Science, doing all this. So why we are moving seeds from one place to another? There's an entire logic to that. And there are two categories to that logic. First, we're going backwards. All right. First part is the type of seeds that we move, which is commercial seeds or seeds meant for research. And the second part is we either directly export seeds, like from India, we grow seeds in India and we export them to Bangladesh, or we export them to USA, or we export them to Europe for cultivation. Okay, the seeds which grow go to the farmer. The other alternative is that we grow seeds in India, and we are doing this. Bayer Crop Science is doing what's called the Accelerate Asia project, where we do make in India for vegetable seeds. We grow exotic vegetable seeds in India and we export them to many different countries of the world. So what happens in that case is we call as re-export. From here the seed goes to USA, from there it's packed and it's sent to different South American countries, or it goes to Europe in Netherlands, and from Netherlands it goes to different other European countries. That's called as re-export. So we make India as a seed producing hub, and from here the seed is either directly sold in different countries, or it is sold to a particular country, and from there it's repacked and sold in other countries. That's the model we use for our seed business. That's where moving seeds is a very important task which people like me do for our company. I lead a team of 5 people who work on just this aspect of how do we move seeds from one place to another all across the globe.
In this, why seeds are transported from Africa to different countries? Maximum seed transportation occurs from Africa, but it is that underdeveloped one Africa country.
That's South Africa. No.
Maximum
Victoria.
transportation is all globe, throughout the globe. But
No, this is just an
agriculture
example.
is not so developed there.
No. It's well, it's not the same as India or as US or other countries, but South Africa, for example, has large land holdings, larger than ours, and they cultivate a lot of crops. So this is just an example of how seeds are being transported from one place to another. So it may not give you a right because I haven't used any distinguishers of what does the red line mean, what does the yellow line mean, and what does the black line mean. If I would decipher that, then you will know if seeds are coming into Africa or are they going out of Africa.
Arrows are diverting outside.
Yes, but so are arrows coming from North America, a lot from Thailand. So they are growing everywhere. But that's the message, Africa is a coming up hub for world food production. And we are doing a lot of seed business in Africa as well. It's one of the underutilized continents of the world. And pleasantly, it's one of the most naturally conserved continents in the world, because human interventions haven't been too high there. But then the resources in some places in Africa are pretty limited as well. But that's a different discussion altogether. There are some global treaties which you guys would have learnt about by now. So which ones have you talked about so far? CBD, Cartagena Protocol. So how much did you get bored? Did you like hearing about them? So Well, I've been following these treaties for a very long time. Since 2011, I've been dealing with them, and they can be really boring to read. If you go out to read the text on the web, it's so long and it's so boring because it just keeps going. You know, I mean, it just keeps talking about the same stuff all the time. And mainly, what you see in between the triangle is what these treaties deal with. That's mostly all they talk about. So, the 2 points that come out of all the 3 treaties that you see mentioned here is sustainable use of biodiversity and benefit sharing. These 2 points are the key factors why these treaties came into place, to make it more easy for using bioresources from different geographical locations of the world, and to make it possible for breeders to gain access to PGR. Otherwise, we would just have whatever is available in India, and it will be the same thing for somebody in the USA. That's the reason why these treaties evolved. I think one of the most functional aspects of these treaties, I'm not going to talk about details of what CBD is or what Nagoya Protocol says, but I'll touch a little bit about ITPG RFA. This one, have you guys heard about this? International Treaty of it's a very long abbreviation. So, it's this treaty actually is the main area where operationally seed companies, even public institutes can actually use the mechanism developed under ITPG RFA to exchange germplasm. NBPGR is one of the nodal institute for Government of India to deal with this kind of exchange through a MLS system. It's called multilateral scheme through that system, and that's a global system of germplasm exchange. Now, this system is still in very early stages of development. It's not fully developed. Some of the countries are part of it, some of them are not part of it, but India is taking a very serious view of how we can benefit from this, and NBPGR has played a very big role in enabling ITPG RFA regulations in the country. You guys can learn more about it if you're interested. There is a website where you can go and learn about this. And our legislative environment. Do you guys have any questions so far? All right, this is a very busy slide, right? There are so many things written here. This is just to show you that one of the things I like, I've worked with several regulatory regimes in the world. And I think one of the best things about our regime is that everything is written down. So, we have a law for everything. Now, the way that law is implemented, that's a different issue, but the laws are written down, and we have clarity on what's to be expected when it comes to seed movement. All right. So, we have the Environment Protection Act, we have the Seed Act, we have the agency actually, APIDA, which also deals with movement of seeds. Now, how these agencies work and what kind of tango happens between them, I'm not going to get into the details of that. But these are some of the key words, or these are some of the key agencies which you guys need to familiarize yourself if you're going to work for a seed company. Because you will brush into these agencies once in a while if you work for a seed agency, seed company. Even in your public research, if you do crack the ARS and you become a scientist, then also you will be dealing either with Ministry of Agriculture or with the Ministry of Environment and Forest all the way. So, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here in what's good about what exists. Am I going too fast? Do you guys have any questions? All right. Have you guys read the PQ order? How many of you have read the PQ? I'm going to take an exam actually. I'm going to ask you some questions. How many of you have read the PQ order? I heard many yeses. Now you guys can't back out now. Boy, I'm just kidding actually. It is one of the best described plant quarantine regulation in the world, And I can say this really proudly, being an Indian, because apart from us, it's just the Australians who really regulate whatever comes into their country. In fact, if you ever get a chance to go, has anybody been to Australia? If you ever get a chance to go to Australia, they'll start threatening you from the plane itself. In the plane, there'll be announcements. If you've been to any agricultural fields or any soil sticking to your feet, any seeds that you're bringing, you have to declare it in a form. If you don't do that, there's a penalty of $10,000. And if you don't have $10,000, then you spend 2 years in a beautiful Australian prison. So they start threatening you from the plane itself. The quarantine is applicable to anybody who enters the country through any channel. For our PQ order is restricted to only seed movement through commercial channels and other places. Nobody checks you at the airport. I came last night from Dubai, and nobody really asked me if I was carrying a plant or seeds. You could just walk in. But you know Harbhajan Singh? How many of you know Harbhajan Singh? Harbhajan Singh, everybody knows. यार वो क्रिकेटर सरदार जी, उसके जूते रखवा लिए थे उन्होंने. हाँ, बिकॉज ये उसने बोला मैं क्रिकेट खेलता हूँ तो फील्ड में ही खेले क्रिकेट. उनके कहा ये आपके जूते क्लियर होंगे, पहले एक्सरे से जाएंगे, इसके बाद हम इनको फ्यूमिगेट करेंगे, फिर मिलेंगे आपको. But that's the kind of strictness they have, for the Australians have, and we have the same kind of strictness, but it is followed through different routes. So I don't know how many you've been taught about how can we bring seeds into the country. So we can bring them through either DPPQS or for research through NBPGR. And in both the places, there is a thorough check on quarantine conditions imposed by the PQ order. Now the beauty of this document is that it is, well, it's a very long document, it's a 304-page document, but everything is listed here. So now with the, Control F, you can find whatever word you want in this document. It will really help you because there are 24 forms of various plant quarantine regulatory functions. I think it's all written here. So the new policy on seed development as well makes it very liberal for us to do seed business in this country. And that's actually how after 1988, the vegetable revolution that I talked about in the beginning, you remember zucchinis and broccolis? That's how it all began, because you can bring vegetable seeds in open general license and you can sell it in what we call as brown packet or truthfully labeled seeds. That is what is being done by many Indian seed companies. The whole focus of all of this has been making availability of new germplasm to the farmer so that he has multiple choices to grow crops. And we've been doing it pretty well. Now the government has a new thrust of Make in India, and as I said earlier, we are doing a project called Accelerate Asia, where we are making seeds in India for vegetables and we are exporting them to different regions of the world. So all of this is happening in the country because the legislative environment allows it to happen. And it's a good environment. It's not a restrictive environment. There are many world regions where some things are really, really restrictive. Like I gave you an example of Australia. There are examples of this kind from Africa as well. Africa में दूसरे तरीके का चैलेंज है. वहाँ चैलेंज ये है कि वहाँ रेगुलेशन नहीं है. कई कंट्रीज ऐसी हैं, नायरोबी जैसी, उनके पास केन्या जैसी, सॉरी, दे डोंट हैव रिटन रेगुलेशन. तो अब क्या करें? दो चीज़ें होती है ना, अगर रेगुलेशन नहीं है तो इसका मतलब सब कुछ अलाउड है या फिर कुछ भी नहीं अलाउड. तो द अप्रोच दे टेक लाइक जस्ट लाइक अस इज कि कुछ भी नहीं अलाउड. सो देयर इट बिकम्स रिस्ट्रिक्टिव. So what we try to focus through something called as International Seeds Foundation, that's called ISF in short, you can check on Google. That's the International Seeds Federation, which works on implementing quarantine guidelines all across the world. We would like to harmonize quarantine requirements all over the world. This is a very far-fetched dream. It cannot happen overnight. But we are trying to do that slowly and gradually by what is called as ISPM. Ever heard of it? International Sanitary and Phytosanitary. Somebody has heard of it. Some people have heard of it. So ISPM is created under ISF to work on quarantine regulations. The one that impacts India the most is ISPM 38. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but you guys can check it if you're interested. And then the question of for what you've been waiting. I kept this for the last. How do you fit in? So, when I used to be in one of these chairs as a student, nobody told me what kind of departments are there in a seed company. I would never know. मेरे को सिर्फ इतना पता था ARS करेंगे तो साइंटिस्ट लग जाएंगे, नहीं तो SRF है, JRF है और उससे अच्छा RA लग सकते हैं. जब डिपार्टमेंट में पोजीशंस आएंगी तो एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर लग जाएंगे. But this was the only hierarchy I knew. There was nothing else that I knew, because nobody gave me a lecture like this. So nobody really told us that in seed companies how is the way we organize our departments. And I'm not speaking from a multinational company point of view. This is not just bio crop science. This is pan industry. Indian companies today have the same kind of structure, the one that is displayed here. So I'm going to take a little bit of time describing everything that is here. So we have a breeding department. Their job is to breed better crops, full stop, nothing else. It could be hybrid, it could be inbred, it could be anything, it could be GM crops, but their task is to breed better crops. Once they finish the breeding pipeline, those hybrids come into market development or product testing, the second step. All right. Now, product testing is more or less. Are you guys familiar with the ACREP system of testing? Have you heard of it? है ना? So ACREP system जिस तरीके से आप किसी भी यूनिवर्सिटी से उसमें अपना मटेरियल दे सकते हैं, then it will be tested in different zones of the country under IVT, then AVTs, and then it will be zonal release, right? Now, this is a very nice system for public institutions because they don't have those kind of channels to do their testing in different states. But for companies, we don't have another option. We need to test our material ourselves. So we have a technology development or market development function that does the testing of our developed products in different agroclimatic zones of the country. Whichever climatic zone fits us the best, that's where we channelize the release, that's where we do demonstrations to farmers, etc. And a lot of trained manpower is needed to do this. So people who do market development work, they are breeders, they are agronomists, they are pathologists. So there are people from different walks of agriculture. We have people from agriculture economics as well who are there at the later part of product demonstration where it comes to how economically the product figures out to you. So all of that is done in product development stage. Then once a product is developed, we know that we need to release this in the market, then they come to us, the regulatory science group. We are the people who get different kind of approvals from the government to sell the product in the market. So how many of you are familiar with the seed control order? Ever heard of it? Okay. उसमें एक licensing का clause होता है. In every state you need to procure a seed sales license. So people like us, people from my team, get this kind of work done in different states. All the states have different their own regimes, their own requirements. So we take care of each requirement. Then the same function, market development, is also responsible if there are product problems. Let's say there is pollination failure or a flowering failure in a corn cultivar, then market development team will be involved in resolving that. So troubleshooting is also done by people like you, trained in science. It's just that the way science is done becomes different. So here, when we talk about breeding, because many of you are breeders, we don't really call it inbred selection, pedigree method, single seed descent method. They're really nice. I like these names a lot, but we don't use these names because we've got a different kind of coding system. Everything is automated. So we have automation, but the skill of the eye, that doesn't go away. So if as a breeder, if you have skill of the eye in your particular crop, then you will be a very highly paid resource in the private seed industry. But if you're just looking forward to doing, D-square analysis, and if you're looking forward to combining ability tests and all that, or half-sim mating, Carolina designs and all that, then we don't do all that. That's good to read, of course. I mean, those are the principles of plant breeding. You can't, they're always beneficial to know. But the way they are manifested here, it's a little different because it's more fast-tracked. So if I'm thinking about, I'll give you a live example. So if I'm a mustard breeder myself. So if I'm thinking about, bringing out a product which my market development team needs as soon as possible, my thought process will not be like, I will do this in this season 2019. Then off-season nursery, I will take it in somewhere in Himachal, and then in season I'll have 3 seasons, then I'll this data, that data. No. My thinking will be, okay, here's where I am. Can I produce double haploids? Yes. How soon will those double haploids give me a selection result? In 5 months. After that, how soon can I actually pick some DH lines and put them in field? This is just a hypothetical example, but that's the speed with which we progress. So the speed changes, science remains the same. The science doesn't change. You'll be surprised that if I ask you guys to come and describe here, there's no board. But if I ask you guys, a lot of you are breeders, all of you know CMS, right? Everybody knows CMS. लेकिन अगर मैं पूछूँ ना कि CMS से सीड कैसे प्रोड्यूस होता है फील्ड में, तो बहुत कम लोग बता पाएंगे, शायद कोई भी ना बता पाए कि फील्ड में अगर मुझे CMS से सीड प्रोडक्शन चाहिए, इट इज़ अ प्रोडक्शन फील्ड, मेरे पास CMS है टेक्नोलॉजी और मुझे बीज बनाना है, हाइब्रिड सीड बनाना है 1 एकड़ में, कैसे लगाऊंगा मैं लाइन्स, तो बहुत सारे बच्चों को नहीं पता. CMS is a system of hybrid seed production. Both of them, CMS and CGMS. CMS is cytoplasmic male sterility. That is, what is it used for? It is used for selective pollination. Even CGMS or GMS is used for selective pollination. All these are selective pollination systems. Just like, have you ever heard of GM mustard? जो इंडिया में बनाया है DO ने, that is also Barnes and Barstar gene, controlled seed production. The whole idea is to have one directional seed production, one male parent, one female parent, no inbreeding, only cross pollination in a self-pollinated crop. That's where CMS is worked. But knowing how it works for seed production, that's a different ball game altogether. You can develop a parent A, parent B, a parent R. There are 3 parents. You need to grow them in a particular fashion to get the seeds that you want. That's how seed production is done. So see, although you know plant breeding, the practical aspects of it are what you're going to utilize when you work for a company like us. And that's where, I think that's in the end. There is sales and marketing. I won't talk much about sales and marketing because मेरे को उसके बारे में ज़्यादा पता नहीं है. So I'm not going to talk about it, but it's also another function which is very important. A lot of people choose that as their vocation, and they're very happy with that as well. But what do you actually need to work for a seed company? Knowledge, skills. How many of you agree? Do you need knowledge and skills? You need some basic knowledge. You definitely need some skills. But I think the most important thing you need is the will. The will is the most important. It should not be your last choice. It should not be. I take a lot of interviews for PhD students, people who've completed their PhDs, or I've recruited some of them, or completed their masters, fresh out of the university. So what's disheartening for us is when people tell us कि सर मैंने ARH की सर तैयारी करी 2 साल नहीं हुआ सर, फिर मैं SRF हो गया, now they are not paying enough sir, so अभी शादी भी करनी है सर इसीलिए, so I chose to become this. So that kind of a choice, when you hear, you automatically reject the candidate, right? What would you do if you were in my place? So that kind of a loser attitude shouldn't be there. That I've already lost everything, sir, there's nothing more to lose than to work for a company. So that should not be the attitude. You know, you need to fix your will now. You need to fix your will now. You will get insane amount of money if you work for a good seed company. But that should not be the only idea. If you're only targeting that, then you are doing the wrong degree. Then you should have done MBA finance or something. You should have become a broker or a finance broker or something. तो पैसे ही पैसे होते हैं ना? But if you are passionate about the art that you do, you will be very successful even working for a company, but you need to have a will. It should be a conscious choice. I devoted 18 years to bench research. I did a postdoc in Spain for 4 years. I worked there. That's when I decided, yeah, I've had a lot of groundbreaking research. I've written 25-26 papers. Then I thought, yeah, now I really need to see this science working in the field. How can I make it work? Because whatever I'm doing in the lab, I can't see the end of it. You know, you can calculate the distance of Earth to Saturn, okay? But are you going to go to Saturn ever? No. It's knowledge for knowledge. Knowledge for knowledge, I won't call it useless, but I think I'm a bigger fan of knowledge for wisdom. It has to come with wisdom. You type a certain keyword in Google, you'll get 10,000 hits. You need to have the wisdom to select or filter the things that make sense to you, or what were you actually looking for, right? So will comes with wisdom. And skills, these are inborn skills. You know, some of them are born. I was never a good public speaker. I had to cultivate this. I was a very shy speaker, but I had to cultivate this, not for the industry, even for my research. Because in research, I used to give a lot of lectures on double haploids and on herbicide tolerance and the evolution of herbicide tolerance in genetically engineered plants. मुझे ये लगता था कि it's a very dead, boring topic. If you keep talking about how this gene kills glyphosate and others, people go to sleep, you know. So you have to make it more interesting. So you can inculcate skills. It's nothing like I'm a shy person, I can't really talk. You can inculcate it consciously. And you don't have to change your personality type. No, you don't have to do that. Not for a seed company, not for anything. But you need to have your own personality, but you need to have those skills, soft skills or whatever you call them, you will develop them as you age. You don't need to learn everything right now. Nobody learned everything from their mummy's tummy. We all grew up learning things. No? Age will take a toll on you. But adaptability and capability to embrace change is something that I would really like to see when I'm recruiting people. Because when I see people say that, sir, I am from plant breeding, sir, I just want to do plant breeding. Nothing else, sir. And that too in brinjal only, sir. No other crop. Only brinjal, sir. I did PhD in brinjal. So now you see the mindset is so fixed in one thing. You have to open your mind. That's when you are becoming philosophers of science. It's a huge tag, philosophers of science. You should be ambassadors of science, not just when it comes to plants or environment or living sciences like the way we've been taught in agriculture, but other sciences too. Broaden yourself, read more. How many of you have heard the name of a book called Mendel in My Kitchen? Has anybody heard the name? You can write that name down. It's called Mendel in My Kitchen. Google it. It's a beautiful book which talks about plant breeding, and it talks about how different crops were not just domesticated, but they were bred to become what they are today. There's another book which I would recommend to you guys, or there's a movie also. It's called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Anybody heard this name before? Anybody's heard of HeLa cells? HeLa? HeLa comes from Henrietta Lacks. These are cell lines. This is the immortal cell line of first human immortal cell line, which was taken from a colored woman's cervix. She had cervical cancer. Her name was Henrietta Lacks. When you read this book, you will realize how regulations are formed, how we have risk assessment as not a fearful science, but as a science that deals with assessing what needs to be done when you are approving a medicine or a pesticide or a chemical. There's a lot to understand in this book. But that's all that I had. I think I've taken just enough time. Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me.
Sir, how a BCS student